directory. On your Azure or even your AWS, they have these workflow optimization processes, also first in, first out type based technology where it's a message queuing type system. That way, if the system gets overloaded, it can just batch process, but it always knows to go to the pickup directory or the pickup database to pick up the last row. When it's done processing, it either moves it out, moves it somewhere else, and or just deletes the file. And then typically it will write a log that it's completed and whether or not it was successful or not successful, and any error number or batch number appropriate to all of that. So hopefully this gives you a little bit better idea. But here's the key takeaway. All this rambling to get to this main key point. You're going to get a 78% on average reduction of the size of whatever it is that you're trying to scrape. The other side of it is that there's consistency in the output. I'm using Markdown. I said earlier we could do JSON. The other thing is, and this is the real ultimate takeaway, 10x performance on your RAG, because you're getting rid of all of the bloat and you're not continuously throwing thousands and thousands of lines of code into something that is just absolutely unnecessary. So you can transform your RAG pipeline today by using this script. I'm going to show you an example of it. And before I do, let me prep what I need to do. I am going to, let's use the NPR one. I'm going to copy this link address. You going to say something, Sean?
Yeah, while you're doing that, I wanted to say, an example of this, what I've been doing with RAG is creating doc books, right? So when you're in the process of documenting your code, when you're documenting your solution, using AI for that, by the way. But when you do, you can then take those, convert it into maybe a Markdown or in DocBook format and be able to load it into RAG. The consistency of the data and reducing the bloat means that it will be higher performant, it will be better. So it's not just this script, is the point I wanted to make. When you're doing RAG, garbage in, garbage out. If you pump a whole bunch of garbage in there, that means you're going to be spending more to query it. It's going to take longer to query it, and you'll have less accuracy. So many people talk about having dual RAGs. So you will have a non-performant RAG and a performant RAG, and then you'd have human curation as you go along. This is the lifecycle management I was talking about on the last call, so that your people can use the RAG as it exists with all the garbage data. They can then curate it as they use it. And once it's curated, it goes into the quality or performant RAG. And that over time, then your data will be cleaned up. Now, in this scenario, it's just taking the data, removing all the advertising, and focusing really on just the content to scrape.
Yep, that is absolutely correct. And the one thing, well, I guess it wouldn't apply there to that one. Okay. One of the URLs, I lost my train of thought. One of the URLs that I have picked up from this, I don't know, I just picked this one right here, this NPR document right here. And so this is the one, this is the URL that I'm going to be using. So I am going to kind of contrast and compare. I'll go all the way to the end. We got 938 rows. And again, it goes right to left, top to bottom. It's just absolutely huge. So let's just call this round to 1,000-ish almost rows on this URL. And so let's drop this out. Now here's the script that's running. I'm going to choose number 3 to exit. So when you get ready to install this, and I'll open this up real quick. So I appreciate that some of the folks watching this may or may not fully be adept on how to run some of this stuff. So if you download the script, again, you'll have to fill this part out. You'll have to have the server. You'll have to get that up. But all this import, so import requests, import JSON, time, and whatever, The main one should be, and only would really be this one, so request. So you might be wondering, what do I do with something like that? So you just do pip, which is the package installer pack for Python. And you just do pip install, can't type, pip install request. I've already have it installed. It's no big deal, but you'll have to run that first. Once you run that, then all you're going to do is you're going to run Python. And if you're on a Mac, you'll do Python 3 space and then crawl for script.py. And when you do that, you'll come back to pretty much what you were seeing before I did all of that. And with any luck, if it's successful, you'll get something that looks like this. So we're only going to do a single URL today. So I'm going to choose number 1 and hit enter. And now it's going to ask me for the full URL, which I'm going to paste in that copy of that URL that's there. Now, keep an eye on the left side because this is where the script is. But once it does the scraping, it's going to make a markdown document and keep the same name of the title of whatever the document is or the news article, .md for markdown. And then we'll get to see the output of that. So now it's crawling and it's doing its magic. It's grabbing it, it's parsed it, it's in memory, and lo and behold, that quick, it was able to scrape out. Now remember, this was almost 1,000 lines long. We're going to pop this open, and we've got some of the unfortunate garbage that did still come through. This is stuff that we don't need there, but by and large, it's much less garbage and junk as opposed to what used to be there. Now, I would say, in my opinion, this did a horrible job of extracting the information because the actual article I honestly don't see in this example. Actually, here it is right here. So here is the main article. So you will capture that, but it looks like it's also capturing a bunch of other stuff from the page. So this is one of these examples where you just have to go back and continue to noodle on stuff. Other examples I've done did a really great job. It didn't do the menu. Now, to kind of walk you through this, just as a quick sidebar.
Well, it did say 78%.
It did, but this was a horrible example. I would say at best, it probably did 50, maybe 40, 50%. Is cleaning, but it shouldn't have had all of that other stuff that was there. I'm trying to get back to the other. So if we go back into the documentation and we go into the advanced content processing, there's this advanced piece of code right here called exclude tags. And so in your source code, every website developer, designer, even if AI is doing it, typically they use tags for very specific things. And in HTML5, it's so much easier and better and cleaner, but you still have these old legacy platforms that are not up to speed, not writing normal up-to-date code. They're still using like the older standards. And so it gets tricky based on what engine is creating this content. And as a result of that, you can't always latch onto or count. So for example, if you create a div tag called navigation or nav, which is industry standard or best practice, and if you have a company that doesn't follow industry standard or best practice, then you can't latch onto something that doesn't exist. So this is where you're going to just drive yourself nuts and noodle on it. But the bottom line takeaway is even at 40 to 50% efficiency, it's much better than zero, because without it, you're definitely going to hit zero. But this was a good example. I'm kind of glad that this did happen, because I like to show that, you know, in reality, things never go as planned. Like there's a lot of clean demos out there and people polish it and do whatever. But when you get to doing it in the real world, in the wild, this is part of being a developer, even if you're not a developer. This is just the way that the cookie crumbles, so to speak, today. You got challenges, you got to work through it, you got to figure out how to work through it. And now you've got to figure out how to talk to AI so that it can help you work through it. And so this is just another thing of honestly where I would pick up, try to continuously noodle on this thing. Over time, this script will get better and better and better. I don't have a need to use this every day, but if this was my job and this is what I needed to do, you bet I'm going to come up with really good and interesting and creative ways to make this script the most efficient thing that has ever been created or produced. So if this is you and this is appealing to you, this is what you'll need to look for. I'm going to pop this QR code up here so you guys can go and download this script and play with it for yourself. And with any luck, you'll be able to execute it there. And if not, definitely reach out to Sean or I on that. Did you want to go ahead and add something to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to put an exclamation point on this. This is a really good example of finding an open source solution and having to make it work for you. And back in the day, you would need a team of developers or an outsourced team to build something like this for you. And it would be a 3-month, lead time you would need. But by the time that you knew you had to have something, to the time that it needed to be used. So now you could do that in a period of 3 days instead of 3 months. And what we're not showing here is with open source, you could take the log output. And with these applications, there's a log, you put it in verbose mode, and then you capture that log, you throw it in the AI and say, hey, I am experiencing this. What do I need to do? So the noodling that David was talking about is in conjunction with AI, right? And AI will tell you, okay, change, X to Y and A to B, and then, you should look at this and you should look at that. Maybe there's another, sometimes I'm working with it and it's like, you know what? This particular program that you're working on, it's not going to be good for this. We've kind of figured that out. Switch to this different application and it may be able to help you. So, there's a lot that AI can do for you in this space.
Yep, absolutely. And one other thing I'll add before we close out on this short follow-up on last week's is that whatever work you've done up until that point, especially if you're using something like Claude Code that's going to go in and update and change your code. So if you've got something that's working pretty remarkably well, snapshot it, grab a copy, put it off to the side, and then have it iterate on that. Because if it trashes it, and it has done it, just restore the one and just try to maybe take a different prompt or approach to it. But iterate, make a copy, save it to the side, and then obviously clean up your archives. But definitely work with version control when you're working with something like Claude Code or Visual Studio Code and GitHub Copilot or whatever it is that you're using out there. Anything else to add to that?
No, really appreciate it. And I'm sure you all will miss me in the next couple weeks. I am being dragged kicking and screaming into vacation mode. So hopefully I'll be able to catch you all in a couple weeks. And but I'm sure David will hold down the fort. If you have any questions, hit us up on LinkedIn. We'd love to talk to you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Have a great day. Bye-bye.